Right. So good afternoon to everybody and welcome to the NEBOSH National General Certificate in Occupational Safety and Health. Today we are on our project and there's some things to repeat with that from last week. Remember, and even from the orientation, right? Now, I really didn't go back and look at the video on YouTube, but I am seeing that it had some less views then, right? So you'll please remember to use your videos, especially when the project, is that important anyway, right? So I really do want to hit the ground running with this, but just to repeat something from last week, remember the project is a part of the certification process. To be awarded the NEBOSH certificate, you must pass the open book exam and you must also pass the project. Passing the project is not easy, but it's not hard either because it's like a checklist. What you want to do, you want to sort of follow the guidance we have on screen here, and you want to do that project. Um, you want to make yours similar to what they have, but you don't want to make it the same thing. Similar is not the same. Similar is similar. So let's have a go at it. I did mention if you all printed the sheets, we could have a fill-in of it today, right? So the main document is called the guidance. This is what I have up on my screen here. I don't know if you all can see it. There's a picture of a forklift here. So can you all see that on your screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So this is the main document, but this is the one that most people ignore for some strange reason. This tells you exactly what they need. So whenever you hear me telling you something that they're looking for, it's really not me, but it's really I'm just putting a voice to the guidance then. So if you read this guidance, it says what you're looking for. Now, I wouldn't read all of this here, right? But let's have a start from here, right? And they actually give you a sample as well. Really and truly, once you follow this, you cannot go wrong, right? So as we on this sheet, I'll read out this 6 here for you, and we'll go back and we'll fill it out on the project form itself, right? So as I mentioned, the part one to this really, or the intro to this was last week. So I wouldn't review, like the things we said about the project, and we're just gonna get into it and get it done, right? So you should include the following information: the name of your organization, the site location, how many workers are employed by the organization, the general description of the organization, which must include information on products manufactured. This is what I was saying last week, right? And or services provided. Just give me a minute to admit somebody, right? We can read the rest out, I guess. Um, the types of activities undertaken and the shift pattern worked, right? So uh, the main thing to say with this project is that you have to follow what the accent for, right? Once you ignore one of these, the project is like a checklist there. So like if you don't have it, you can fail the project, right? So the key thing is not really to remember what I am saying, but to read the guidance here to see what they're looking for, right? A description of the area to be included in the risk assessment. Any other relevant information, example, who has the day-to-day responsibility for health and safety in your organization. So if you have yours, let's go to the sample. If you have your blank one, just confirm with me if you could see this other one now. This is like an orange and white table. Can you all see this one on your screen? Okay, good, right? So let's try to fill it out. Having just read what they want. So what I'll be doing, I'll be going kind of, well, for your sake, not for my sake, because I could tell you what to put in it. But for your sake, I wanted to see them back and forth then. It's like if you look at that one and you look at this one, you see what we put in is the name of the organization, the site location, how many workers employed, description of the organization, their main function, their products manufactured, activities undertaken, and shift pattern worked, right? So that's how you use it side by side. And if you use it side by side, you wouldn't make much mistakes, right? So I'll show that again. I'll tell you what I shouted at. I'll shout what I said at the beginning, that I had some students who actually did this without being taught in this class, and they did really well, right? Which just meant you followed the instructions, which was to use the guidance, right? So for you, if you have your blank one, and this is what I advise for today, otherwise, and I did advise to that what should happen by Thursday of this week, you all should send us part one and part two. Yeah, don't wait. I mean, like, what you waiting for, right? Like, I mean, right? Because next week will be part three. So I wouldn't be in part one and part two again. I'll be in part three. Remember, the project is 4 parts, right? Today is part one and part two. Next week is part three, part four. So you should handle part one and part two, even if you don't finish part two, because part two is the table. But let's say you do 3 rows, or you do 4 rows, or you do 5 rows, hand that up and let's see what you're doing. Otherwise, you could be doing the whole thing wrong, or you could just need some pointers here and there anyway, right? But Thursday of this week, you should try to hand up, you know, just like this, type it out. Don't do it on scrap. Do the real thing, right? I mean, this is type anyway. Meaning if you had to change something, you could just backspace and go and change it, right? There's no need to. In other words, then this is what you're working on for your final, right? The only thing is that we're going to give it a draft, read before, send it back to you, and see if we can make any changes on it, right? So I'll ask you as we go along if you have chosen your organization name. I wouldn't waste too much time on this first piece, as we may have touched a bit of this last week already, right? So let's go. Name of organization, you have National General Garages Limited, also known as NGG Limited. So you could put a name of an organization there for you. And maybe one of you could tell me what you all are putting, so I'll have an idea of what you put there for your organization name. Anybody want to say like what company you put?
I
Uh,
had put Welfare Limited, sir.
Okay, good. Well, WFM is a real company, but again,
Yeah.
other than we saying this on the record and at the NEBOSH we have a look at, you could actually use like a real or imagined company. But nothing is wrong with a real one, nothing is wrong with an imagined one. Definitely, you all know National Garage Limited is not a real company. I mean, that's just something that they made up, right? Anybody else?
Yeah, Nutrimix.
Okay, well, you're using real companies. Okay. Anyway, it's up to all you, right? This is all for educational purposes. Nothing here will be shared back with these companies. Just to let you know, right? Remember, when this goes to the UK, they don't know Nutrimix apart from, you know, XYZ Limited, right? It's just a made-up company, right? Okay, site location, Leicestershire, UK. So what do you want to put there? You want to put like San Fernando, Trinidad and Tobago. You want to put Pariland, Point Fortin, Trinidad and Tobago. I'm trying to call different places in Trinidad, right? Chaguanas, Trinidad and Tobago, Freeport, Trinidad and Tobago, where again, Santa Flora, Palacico, South Trinidad and Tobago, right? So nothing hard. Like I said, if you'll work with me, we work with you. Plus, we're looking at your draft. The only thing is, we really hope that you all do work with us for that there, right? Anybody want to share what you put there? Anybody in Guyana, please put, like if you put in Monrepo, Guyana, South America, Berbice, Guyana, South America, Georgetown, right? Guyana, South America is what you put in, right? Anybody want to share what you put in for your site location?
I put Ogle, East Coast, Demerara, Guyana.
South America.
Okay, South America.
South America. Okay, very good. Anybody else? Trinidad,
So I just have point 14, Trinidad and Tobago.
you can put West Indies as well. I mean, West Indies, I guess. But Trinidad and Tobago is
So
fine.
I would have had San Grande, and Tobago, West Indies.
Okay, very good. Right? Nothing wrong with that. Folks, let's move on. That's nothing to really worry about. Nobody ever fail for that. Or you only fail for that if you leave that out. And it have no way you leave that out. And we check in your draft. Only if you didn't hand up a draft, right? Number of workers, 10, 15, 20, 25. It shouldn't be one. It should not be a small number, right? So 5, 7, could probably put it above 10, 12, 15. especially if it says a medium-sized company. If it says a small organization, like if it's a roti shop, a puri shop, you could probably say 5, and then you say, um, the one I used last week. But we can use another one. You can probably say, Ram's Roti Shop is a small, restaurant that caters for members of the public, special occasions, weddings, birthday parties, etc. Right? But it all depends on what you say, right? But here they have medium and they have 20. So if you put in 20, you would want to say your company is a medium-sized company as well. Probably anything less than 10 could be classified as a small organization. If you're in the big numbers, hundreds, 200s, that's okay. You just have to say what is a large organization anyway, right? Like WellFab. If you say WellFab, you may want to kind of just estimate 100 workers or something, or 200 workers, or Nutrimix, right? Which is huge organizations anyway, right? Anybody want to share what they put? Just a number, just shout a number that you want to put in.
I had 26, sir.
Oh, very good. No problem with that. Anybody else?
Well,
Anybody?
I had my organization was a hospital, so I had 100.
Okay, very good. Very good. Very good. Anybody else? Right. So please remember, like I said, if you don't get, you should do it now, right? And hand it up one time. And we check it. That'd be really good for you all. It'd be really good. That's how to say it. It'd be really good for you all that you all can get that done and focus on your exam and get this out of the way, right? All right, the next thing we're looking at is the general description of the organization. So what do you want to put here? I'll discuss it again, but I read it twice, right? What you put in there is the size of the organization. I could go back and show you it. It's actually on the guidance. It's the size, the function. The function includes like what are they doing? Like if you're making anything or you're selling anything, function, right? Like what service you're into. You'll also want to put the activities undertaken. That's very important. I'll show you how to do that. And you want to put the shift system and the time of working. That's what you'll find here. Let's have a read of this one. I'm going to move our faces to the top a bit. And I'll kind of break it down still for you. Have to admit somebody as well, though. Right? So I'm reading this one, right? NGG Limited is a medium-sized garage with offices, vehicle repair shops, and paint spray booths. So I think I mentioned last week you need to have 3 locations. So if you're using the hospital, right, you'll have to zone down to 3 locations, right? So you may want to zone down to, and you could help me with this, right? Because you all know the hospital more than me anyway. So you may want to zone down to like a specific office, right? Like an office, so I guess a dome or something that you all call it, like where the doctors and the nurses at. I'm not quite sure.
The area I was thinking about was the incinerator where they dispose of like the medical waste and stuff. But I'm not quite sure about that.
Okay, and what's the other 2 areas?
I wasn't sure really like what to put. Like you saying like the dorms. I was thinking more of maybe like a theater area. But
I'd probably recommend, well, I'll tell you a little story just now, right? But I'll probably recommend like the ward itself, I guess. Maybe like one of the wards, and you could take the parking area, or you could take, I want to call it like an office. I don't know if it's an office where where the nurses and them, like the nursing station now. Or maybe even the welfare room, like where they having lunch,
You could do
right?
the maternity ward, or you could do the ICU, things like that.
Yeah,
Or
I see it may be kind of dangerous to do, but you could probably do the maternity ward.
there,
You could do one ward. Come to think of it, like the maternity ward may be kind of hard to do as well.
there's
But
also like the laundry room. Lots of hazards there where they
yes,
do the
so
laundry.
yeah. So
Mhm.
like the reason why I said hard, right, is because the idea of choosing a place is to get hazards. So what hazards would you get in the ICU ward? So that's what I was looking at, that the ICU ward is pretty much well kept. I mean, of course we know there's a contamination hazard, biological hazard, but I'm not too sure what other hazard. You get the idea? of choosing the incinerator is a good idea. The idea of choosing the laundry room or a welfare room or like a ward itself that may have tripping hazards and stuff may be good enough. The idea is to pull the hazards out from them, right? So remember they pull 10. So I'm thinking you could probably get about 5 in the incinerator. You could probably get fire. You could probably get biological hazards. You could probably get slip, trips, and fall. You could probably get noise. You can probably get health, welfare, and working environment because it's very hot inside there, right? In the welfare area, you could probably get slip, trips, and fall. Again, if you want to go back to that, you could probably get I'm thinking about the list, manual handling, hazard. So you all know what list I'm talking about, right? But you could probably get it. So the idea of choosing an area is to choose an area that have hazards. If you choose a really clean area that nobody is in, you probably mightn't get much hazards. So that's the idea with the 3 areas then. Like if you look here, if you see what they're talking about, the activities, moving spare parts, so that's manual handling. So that's where the hazards will come in at, right? So the idea of choosing the areas is to kind of focus on where you think have hazards anyway, right? Anybody else have another area that they choose? Like what was your company all about, right? They have NGG. This is a fabricated company. So what was your company all about? Anybody? Any restaurants? Any?
So mine is focusing on a workshop. Well, it's really a machine shop. And I just realized I don't have 3 different locations in the machine shop. There's one big workshop.
Do they have an office?
Yes. We have an
Do they have
office, we have a lunchroom,
They
we
have
have a tool
storage
room.
area where this stuff is kept after you finish work on it?
Yes, we have a tool room.
Yeah, so that's true right there. And there was somebody else that was
Okay.
speaking as well. So the person who was talking before,
I was saying my organization was welding fabricating. So I had the warehouse, the welding fabricating shop, and the scaffolding department.
right. And like because I am familiar with these things, like I said, I want to tell you a story, but like the guy who said the incinerator, I actually did a risk assessment inside there. We actually did risk assessments for the hospital there to train the hospital staff some years ago, right? And yeah, I actually know what I'm talking about. And in terms of the machine shop for Lex, a machine shop would actually have like a painting room. I don't know if you have like a painting area as well. So those of us who using like a machine shop, like whatever you worked on and it's gonna be sanded down and grinded down and painted. If it's like even priming it then. So I don't know if you all have a painting room as well that you could think about using. And then that's why I mentioned the storage area because what is worked on is never really stored there, it's actually stored somewhere else. Right? Okay. But any interesting ones like any really good businesses that somebody is and you're all using, machine
Okay,
shops
so
and
I did mine based on a private contracting company, which also does in between public contracts like for government schools and whatnot. So
yeah.
um the areas I have is like an admin building. Then there's a big yard where all the heavy equipment is stored, and
Yeah.
then there's a warehouse
Yeah. That
to
should work.
like
That should work,
actually
yeah.
do the
Yeah.
fabricating stuff and whatnot. So where I would do the assessment is in the yard where all the heavy equipment is stored and in the warehouse where you would
Yeah.
have like actual labor happening.
Yeah. Well, I would recommend
With
all
like
3 areas.
60,
Yeah, I'd recommend to
all
do the
three
risk
areas.
assessment.
Okay.
Yeah, because you see, don't leave out the office. Okay? If you leave out the office, then you leave out some good hazards then. Like the office may have,
Okay,
if you
okay.
have your
So
list, we have the list, yeah. So if you want to show you the list, so like don't leave out, let me just go back and show you the list, right? Like don't leave out the office. I mean, no, because the sample
but I
leave
was
it on
just
the,
I was just actually
yeah.
kind of copying the example from the
Yeah,
printout
but don't copy it.
where
Yeah,
I
yeah. I
saw
mean,
okay.
yeah, they
When I
leave out
say
the
copy, I mean I
office.
kind of follow to suit.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, but
okay.
don't leave out the office. Yeah, because if you leave out the office, then you kind of like leaving out the office mean you're kind of just getting more mechanical hazards then. But if you put in the office, then you could use things like this, like violence at work. mental ill health.
Right,
What about
great. Okay.
economics? Yeah. So don't leave at the office, right? Don't do everything the sample tell you to do. I'll show you some wrong things on the sample. I'm not too sure if you'll remember. If not, I'll say it again. But probably I didn't say it. Let me just go back to the sample, right? So here the thing, right? NEBOSH did not produce 3 samples. It's like it didn't go like from good, better, best then, right? There's just one sample. So what they did on the sample, I'll show you some things, right? What they did, and I want you to take note. In this sample, it have good things, but in this sample, it also have bad things. You understand what I'm trying to get at? They didn't give us 3 samples to show you, they gave us 1 sample. But in the 1 sample, it have good things and it have bad things as well. So we could point out to you what is good and what is bad. Like this right here is bad. I don't know if I told you that last week already. I don't know if you remember what was bad. If not, we'll come to you just now, right? So most of the sample is good, but things like this is bad. Like you're not supposed to really do this. Like how you see here, NA, you're not supposed to do that, right? It have 1 or 2 things in the sample exactly off, and we will correct it for you. But that's good when I say good because we get to show you then like what not to do like this. 6 months to be confirmed following noise survey, that's wrong. This what they put here, that's also wrong, right? So like I said, they didn't give you like a sample that was bad and then a sample that was fairly good and a sample that was excellent. No, they put everything in one. So that's why when we go through it, I'll shout out to you what I think is good and what is a definite no. Like this one is a definite no. But I'll show you why just now, right? All right, so we're going back up here. So let's keep on reading. Sorry, a bit higher. So once you put the function of your business, right? So the business does a lot of repairs and maintenance on commercial vehicles and body repairs on vehicles, mainly cars and vans that have been involved in accidents. Insurance companies. Servicing and MOTs are also carried out from members of the public. So that's the function. Now, what I want to say, and I have to say it, is that if anybody using a fabrication shop, you'll be very careful not to repeat any of these words, right? So that's why I have sometimes a fear. I think I told you that fear already. If not, I could say it again. I have a fear of people using machine shops and mechanical bays because some of them, the fear, you could just take a note from it, just tell her call it back here. So the fear is that you all use lines from here. And if you use lines from here, they will catch you with plagiarism. There's nothing wrong with using a machine shop, but you can't use lines from here, right? And so, you know, if you want to use a machine shop, fine. Just read this and turn it into your own words. Don't say anything like servicing and MOTs. Say it back in your own words, right? And that's why I asked if there's any creative ones. Like I've been trying to hint to some creative ones, you know, like roti shops and curry shops and restaurants and the mall and you know, somewhere beside in what the sample have now, right? Because you can imagine, right? These examiners correcting these things for the last 5 years, they fed up see the same thing on the machine shop. A lot of people kind of paraphrase this anyway, right? But I'm sure they're interested to see a really nice one on the port or whatever have you, or some other company, right? I had people that do financial institutions and whatever have you, the bank, right? But the fear, I tell you, I had to say, the fear is that you do not use words from here. And if you don't use words from here, well, then you're fine, right? So that's just a fear I have because I know people have fallen back to the lines from here. Then when you fall back to the lines from here, they catch you with plagiarisms, right? Anyway, so moving on. Typical activities undertaken include moving spare parts from the stores to the workshop, comma, I'll tell you why I read in the comma just now. Engine repairs, comma, activities relating to servicing and MOTs, comma, body repair, comma, draining fuel oil, comma, spray boot activities, including the use of paints that are solvent-based, right? So whatever is your business, you put typical activities, but you can say it in another way. You can say, you know, the main activities or the main, but they say the guidance asks for activities, eh? Let me just go back and show you. The guidance asks for activities, so you have to say the word activities, right? I wouldn't tell you change it, would look at here, right? types of activities undertaken and the shift patterns worked, right? So you have to say activities, but you might want to say typical. You may want to say at Nutrimix, general activities undertaken include, and you can help me with this. The person who said Nutrimix, you can say things like unloading feedstock from suppliers, and storage in the warehouse, removal of chemicals from suppliers and storage in the warehouse. And you all will list the activities, right? And you separate it with a comma anyway. Anybody want to try to give that a go based on like what they have? Like I had used I could use something simple we could all relate to, like a restaurant that, right? So you can say typical activities, not typical, sorry, but general activities are tribe, right? Tribe is in Guyana, right? So general activities include like receiving products from suppliers, unloading and storing in the designated storage area, preparation of meals in the kitchen, serving customers in the waiting area, right? And so you kind of do it like that, but that sort of approach then, right? Where I think somebody's on the outside. Hold on a bit, huh? I'm moving the Zoom bar. No, I think we all in to the top. Yeah, right. But you separate it via a comma as much as possible to give an idea of what is being done, right? So I could go back to a machine shop example. If it was that you are grinding, cutting a piece of metal to specification, that's what you say. Grinding and cutting metal to specification, pressing, the metal with a drill press or a hydraulic press, manually removing the creased metal because you would have creased it or you would have pressed it already. So the painting boot, painting off the piece of metal to specification, transport into the storage area, right? Well, probably full stop there, right? So you have to put that nitty-gritty approach to it as to what your activities are like, right? So if you're okay with that, and anybody wanna, like if I was given the school, as many of you all know, or many of you all don't know, this is not the school, this is the office. So like, but if you pity that, if you say a school, you can say, because doesn't matter if it's UWI or Costat or Shadrach, you can say typical activities include administrative duties, the dissemination of classes via online means, receiving funds and distributing of books, and trying to think of something else, and I can't think of something else, right? But that's the same approach, and so the same approach is that you break down whatever the organization is doing, teaching, training, consultancy, fabricating, cooking, whatever, into commas. You separate each one via comma. Tell me if you're okay with that. I just did about 2 for your additional. I did the office and I did, I guess, some sort of restaurant, right? You're okay with it? Yes or no? Right? You must go to that sort of approach,
Yeah.
right? Because somebody in England is reading it and they need to know what's happening in your company, what's happening in Welfare, what are you doing, what's happening in Nutrimix, what's happening in company XYZ, right? And you can literally make it up by following this one. The introduction here is good. And I told you if something is not good, I'll tell you what is not good, right? So the next sentence here, the garage opens from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays and is closed on the weekends. Workers are only required to work 7 hours per day, so they are staggered start and finish time and place. You can ignore that because the guidance just said the one day, like the time, the shift patterns work. So that's what you want to put there, right? So you would put, Fab operates from 7, a.m. to 4 p.m. On a weekdays, Monday to Friday. A shift system is in operation on a Saturday. You could write that in from about, 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. Right? So tell me if you're okay with that one. There's no need to put no stagger time, nothing that doesn't pertain to you. That's just how it is for this company. Right? What is important here, though, so I'm going to take the marker and write it because, when I start writing, it means something is important, is that students don't put this shift. I think I mentioned that to you last week, right? But the guidance say put a shift. And then some students say, well, my company doesn't have a shift. It doesn't matter. The guidance say put a shift. So you have to put a shift. Right? Think you understand that? Another way of thinking of this project, which is the same way. I told you the project is like a checklist. What they ask you for is what you have to give them. Right? So if you go back to the guidance, let me click it here so that you'll see clearly what I'm talking about. And again, you don't really need to, you can do this for yourself when you're doing yours. Check back the guidance. If you read here, you'll see, watch it, the types of activities undertaken. What's this word here? What's the word after undertaken?
And shift.
And, not or. Right? I think I told you a long story, and if I told you that story before, I can share it again. Where I had a student told me the same thing. She said her company didn't have a shift. I tell her put the shift. She didn't put it. They failed her because of that. The examiner commented how the thing said a shift and she should have put a shift. Right? So make up a shift now, right? That's what I'm trying to say. If you know your company work Monday to Friday, think about what happens if they have a one-off job, right? If it's a servicing company, right? And then a big company call you, Junior Sammy call you and say, can you service 5 vehicles or 10 vehicles for us on Saturday? Yeah, I mean, it's just like a show money anyway, right? You probably will come out and get it done. So you can say that, you can say, in the event of a client request or whatever is your organization. In my case, like imagine if it was a restaurant, right? And you had a big order. You had somebody say, okay, look, they have a party, they have a birthday party coming up. Can you do X, Y, and Z? And it's guaranteed 20,000 TT dollars. You will come out and get it done. Unless if you're rich and you really want that money, right? But to me, if you like even if you had the money, nobody will give up that kind of money then, right? So think about, for those of us who have problems associating why they need a shift. Just think about what happens if you have a client or a customer and they need something additional. Well, how does that go then in terms of a shift system, right? In short, put a shift system and you'll pass the exam, right? Any questions there? I don't think we can make it clearer than that. Right, the next thing here. So if you can type this up today as it fresh in your head, tonight after class, type it up. I don't mind looking at part 1 by itself, but I want to reach part 2 today too now. So we will try to look at the whole thing, right? So the next thing here, watch carefully with me. I hope also you all are making notes, right? Like for example, shift, I put in shift there, right? So description of the areas to be included in the risk assessment. The truth is, it's not really a description. It's just you stating what you're going to do. Watch this. You think one line is a description? One line is not a description, right? So when they say description of the area to be included in the risk assessment, I recommend all 3. I recommend that you use all 3 areas because the more areas you use, you can pull more hazards from the 3 areas then, right? So you would say the risk assessment will cover the garage, the spray boot activities. The office area has a separate risk assessment. They should not have said that because when they say that, then you can't take nothing from the office. You can't take any office hazard, but it's 10 you have to get. So why would you eliminate the office from your search then? You should say 3, right? So like for me, if I was using the restaurant, I would say the risk assessment will cover Ram's Roti Shop or Puri Shop. It will include the kitchen area, the seating area where customers are served, the customer serving area, and the stock room area or whatever. I would include all 3. Why would I leave out an area? Especially when I know like where the customers are being served could have violence. Remember, that's one of the hazards. But if you're using the stock room, how it is again violence in the stock room? Folks, I think you understand it now? Let me just say, if you have an irate customer, somebody that didn't like how your food was tasted, right? Violence at work, right? Or you take too long to serve them. What's the name of that place there, Keisha, in Georgetown? By Giffland Mall, it take very long to serve you there. So
Giffland Mall?
yeah, by Giffland Mall, there's I think it's Soho. I think I have a picture there.
Oh.
The couple of restaurants there, yeah. They take very long to serve. So what about so don't leave out if you use it, don't leave out an area. That's the point of this story. Don't leave out an area there because if you just say the machine shop there, then some of these hazards you can't use them. Right? like mental ill health. That could probably be more for office workers, right? Now, in the stock room or in the yard, maybe you could get substance abuse at work. They could be hiding and drinking, whatever have you. But the point is, don't leave out any area. And those of us in the hospital, like you said, the incinerator, fine, look at biological hazards here. So you can say hazardous substance, biological, but if you use the kitchen area, you can have we could have hazardous substance, chemical. So this is two hazards, right? But if you say you wasn't using the welfare area, then we probably mightn't capture chemicals, hand sanitizer, chlorine, Clorox, or anything else that you have stored. The point is use 3 areas. You can use 4 if you want, but 3 I think is enough to get 10 hazard zone anyway, right? Don't leave out any because it could be kind of shooting yourself in the foot then, right? When you need all 3 areas anyway, right? So again, I'll just do one more for the schools. So the risk assessment will cover the office area in San Fernando, the classroom in Riverside Drive, and the washroom facilities at Riverside Drive, which is where the main school is located. But since the pandemic, you all know, thank God for online classes, we have not been there anyway, right? Any other relevant information? Well, the guidance actually said what you need for that. If we go back and we read it, and we read it already for today. What today? Any other relevant information? Who has the day-to-day responsibility for health and safety in your organization? So that's what you put in there, right? Here have the finance director who reports directly to the managing director, has direct responsibility for health and safety. Again, you will just be real. If it's Frank Henry, just say Frank Henry, the CEO, has direct responsibility for the machine shop, the day-to-day responsibility for health and safety. If you know it's in the hospital, and maybe there is some head nurse or something, you say, well, Miss Jane, the head nurse, don't put finance director. That's what they sketch your lion. That's what NEBOSH is sketching, because the next thing is that your company don't even have a finance. You put a finance director for the roti shop. Who is the finance director in the roti shop, in the puri shop, right? It don't have a finance director for the puri shop or the roti shop, right? So you'll just make it your own now, right? If it's a school and you say the principal has direct responsibility for the day-to-day, managing of health and safety at Shadrach Safety Institute, something like that, right? And that piece is done. Nobody have a reason to fail this. Nobody. Not in this school. In another school, maybe. As I told you before, some schools don't teach the project, right? Our video on YouTube, when I say our, not this one, we are the most watched videos on the project in the world. Not that there's plenty of views, remember, it's safety. Safety is not Hollywood. we're not that entertaining, but in terms of academics, our project videos have the most views in the world. Anybody doing NEBOSH just come to the videos, because not a lot of people teach it. And maybe not a lot of people could teach it. That's the next thing. You don't have too much providers in Trinidad, as we know. And it only have one in Guyana. And they don't know what they're doing. So, that's a different story, right? Okay, let's get on to the methodology. So this piece of it is called the methodology. If you doubt that, you go back to the guidance. So the guidance is here. So right after number 6, if we scroll along, you would see here, but they have a sample, of course. And then they say here, you will then need to outline how you carry out the risk assessment, methodology used. You would need to include the sources of information you consulted, who you spoke to, and how you identify the hazards, what is already being done, any additional information, any additional control actions that may be required. So if you go back to the sample, you'll see they have these on the left-hand side, the source of information, who you spoke to, how you identify the hazards, what is already being done, any additional control actions that may be required, right? And that is called the methodology. So just a quick explanation. So the first thing you want to do, you want to say that you look at online sources of information, and you should get at least 1 or 2 such sources of information with a URL and plug it in here. Yes, 1 or 2, because you can have 1 down here as well, right? The next thing you want to do is say that you did an inspection of the workplace and what you found, who you spoke to, how you identify the hazards. In short, what you're doing here, you're saying that you did a risk assessment, or you did a brief inspection, or you did a brief walk around then. And the last thing you say when you are going to suggest further controls that you would use the information sources that you first got to suggest further controls. Let's have a read of it, right? If you want to could grab the marker and explain that a bit more, but if you follow this, you should go good. In fact, there's only 3 things happening here. You're doing a brief literature review. You are saying that you're going to do an inspection and who you spoke to and what you found. And then you're saying the information that you got, you're going to use that to suggest further controls. It's actually right on the left-hand side there. Let's have a read, right? So it said, I started by looking up references to good practices relating to our organization. The HSC website had lots of resources. For example, health and safety in motor vehicle repair and associated industries, HSG 261, and they have the URL there, was a good source of information. So you read that 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and you say it back in your own words, right? So like I could say, words like I researched information relating to the restaurant on the World Wide Web. I found, good articles on, and you could give a site or whatever, as well as the HSE website provided useful information. And you could actually quote one of them. Remember, we had a class on the guidances and the ACOPs. You go to the HSE website, just plug in guidance for restaurants. Because I'm saying a restaurant, or guidance for schools, or guidance for fabrication shop, right? As long as it's not this one, don't use back this one, because it'll be counted as plagiarism. Right? Think you understand that? Next thing, folks, says, just if you understand, so you can say, I researched the World Wide Web, I looked at journals, I looked at magazines, but you need to put like one URL here there. The bigger picture is that this is like a small literature review. 1 or 2 articles is good enough. Small is that small. Tell me if you're okay with that. You don't have to say, I started by looking up. No, just say it in your own words, right? Say, and look, I've given you words. If you were write it, you would have write it down long time already. You say, in doing my research for NG2, I looked at internet sources of information that pertain to my company. And no, it actually have other sites, it actually have other sites, like OSHA sites. It have OSHA, IOSH, European Union. It's not just the HSC website, right? You can say, like I got information from, the European agency, the HSC website, and OSHA were good sources of information, right? It do have to be exactly what you're seeing here, folks, as I'm trying to tell you, right? This is just a pattern. Right? And you could actually add to the pattern, but you can't really minus too much from the pattern here, right? Next thing you want to say, you did an inspection or you walk around. You can actually say that. You can say, having completed my literature search, I walked around the company. I did a brief inspection. You can say, what's that? Like, I'm actually telling you what to write now, I'm actually dictating what you're supposed to be writing, right? Other than what you're seeing here, right? I went around the workshop and talked to the people who are doing the job. By the way, they say who, right? So you have to say who. You have to say, so what's missing here? You have to say who you spoke to, right? So you can say in the walk around, I spoke to Frank Henry, the supervisor, I also spoke to Jim Bean, whoever that is, right? One of the workers, and the CEO, Miss Jane, right? Who you spoke to. So what was missing in the guidance? You need to probably put the position. You can put a name if you want. But you could put the position, right? I spoke to the people. It's kind of vague. You have to say, I spoke to the HSC manager, I spoke to the supervisor, I spoke to the chef, right? Who was actually cooking in the kitchen and, mentioned to me that there are obvious hazards such as drop objects and the floor being slippery and not mopped up on an occasional basis. You're being real with what you're writing and don't just copy what you're seeing here. Otherwise, they would, you'll fail the exam, right? So why did they talk to people? They gave me information that was not obvious from just a vision inspection. For example, a lot of workers did not know that there were dust masks available or the reasons why they should be worn. So like if you're doing the restaurant and you say you spoke to the customers can say, well, they found that that the waiting time was long, or they found that the washrooms were unclean or unkept, right? So you make this thing yours by not copying and by making it yours by talking about your organization, right? Like imagine if I said that, imagine if the customer said the washrooms are not totally clean, or they noticed the food or the waiters were actually, distributing food without proper gloves and a proper headwear, right? Or the customers notice, I see I'm talking from experience, the customers notice mold on the ceiling, right? Over the kitchen area, right? So the idea here is not just, and if it was a school, you can say I spoke to the principal, I spoke to the teachers, I spoke to the lecturers, I spoke to the, because I know we have a student here that actually is a safety in a school, right? So I spoke to the student population that mentioned that. And of course, this is tertiary. Could mention things like, like the parking facilities was not adequate. There was no signage. Staff may have pointed out to the fact that they have not done a drill in the last year. Folks, you see which part I'm going with this? You have endless things to talk about, but you had to talk about it. Tell me if you're okay with that.
Yes, sir.
If you're neutral mix, say you talk to, I don't want to call him my name, but so you talk to the HS manager who pointed out that the area is often, prone to dust, right? You talk to the workers who explained it that they have been standing for very long hours in the preparation of their jobs anyway, right? You have anything to talk about? Just talk about them, right? Next thing, right? How you identify some hazards. I also check the accident book to see what types of incidents had occurred over the last 12 months and whether any of these incidents were reoccurring. I also check the reasons for sick absence again to see if any of these teams or if there were any reoccurring teams of ill health. So you can say the same thing, but say back in your own words, you can say, I haven't done the walk around. I checked the company's notice board. I realized that there would have been 2 reportable accidents in the last year. I in the walkout or in talking to the HS manager, they also reveal that workers have been, coming down with dermatitis, or in my case, the cough or the cold or whatever have you, right? You don't have to say it exactly how they say it here, but companies do have an accident book. Anybody could tell me how companies record accidents again? Like what document could you ask to see again? Besides saying accident book, like what else could you find the accidents on? Quick, anybody? Where's where you find the company accidents on again? I could give you 3, so let's get ready to write it. So you would use it, you could use it interchangeably. Somebody use one, somebody use another one, somebody use another one. Somebody you could say accident book. Where could you find like the log of the company accidents? Like where could you find it?
I know for my company, the first aid room, you can find all first aid that was done throughout the month or the week.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, very good. So we could call it the KPI, the key performance indicator sheet. So if you have a log of it, you can say that. You can say, I check, like the log of the first aid, or I was given permission by the HS manager to view the first aid log. Say it in your own words. NEBOSH love things like that, right? So one of them could be like logs and the KPIs, which is key performance indicators. Another one is accident reports. The accident reports. If you don't know what KPIs is like a sheet they just have. Some companies publish it on a digital board, like how much accidents they have. So you can say that, you can say, I view the company KPI that was expressed on a digital board. Please don't say the same thing as how I say it, because if I look copy from each other now, that'd be even worse, right? But say back in your own, I just giving you other ideas now. You can say, look at the company's accident reports, or you ask to see the last couple of accident investigations, and probably another one is on the HR department. Yeah, hey. Right? You can say that you spoke to HR, because who you spoke to? You spoke to HR, and HR HR was able to, HR was able to, HR was able to tell you that they had, like 4 days away from work or whatever, right? Last one here, just kind of be prepared to write something here again for me. So a lot of the examiners, right, have been asking students to fix this line. Remember, I said the sample is not perfect, right? You see, when they said here, when assessing the control measures, watch it out, when assessing the control measures, what does the requirement ask for on the left-hand side? What does the left-hand side say? It's the last bullet point, so somebody can read it for me. What does the left-hand side say? Anyone?
Any additional controls or actions that may be required?
So I saw an examiner fail somebody because they didn't say additional controls, because they said the left-hand side is asking additional controls and not just controls. So you'll take a note to put in the word additional there. So I'll read this one for you, right? When assessing additional control measures, I also referred to some of the, so that's the information you got, some of the HSC stuff. And they quoted one here, they give back the URL here when looking at additional controls. So for me, I would say, having done the walkthrough, I identify certain gaps, and to suggest additional controls, I will refer back to some of the information sources that I got, and I'll put another one here, and that's how simple that is. But in doing that, I kind of tackled everything they wanted. I tackled additional controls, and I tackled why am I suggesting additional controls is because I may have gotten some gaps in the walkthrough. For example, a lot of workers did not know that there were dust masks available. So in some of the examples I said, like a lot of workers, may have complained about standing for very long at Nutrimix, or the HS manager may have said the area is dusty or noisy, whatever have you, right? Right? Tell me what you think. The methodology again is threefold. Research things that you did and how you're going to bridge the gaps. But you're just saying how you're bridging the gaps. You're not really putting any real controls here. You're just putting like a web address where you got, and you are just saying that you are going to bridge the gaps. For any additional controls, you would be referring back to the information that you sourced anyway. Tell me what you think. Take a look at it, see if you can digest it a bit. I'll drink some tonic water in the meantime. No, for real. So, no, you're probably going to do that. Any questions? Yeah, for real. It was actually club soda. Yes. For Project Rose in Guyana, this would be similar to what we call or what you'll call diamond water, because I don't think this sells in Guyana. But you'll have diamond water, which is the same thing again. Yeah. Any questions, anybody? So the methodology is fine for you all? Tell me. Yeah? Yes, no, yes, no. Okay, so let's get on into the table now. And so I may move us back to the side. The faces are me now. We'll keep our faces up there for now, but I think we can put it back here. So the top of your table, you put back your organization name. If you want, you could put that now, Lex Engineering, or whatever you want to put, right? You put the date of the assessment, any date will do. You can put today date, you can put tomorrow date, any date will do, right? As long as it's current, like you can't put 2020, today is the 17th. You can forecast it for 28th of August, September, the 5th of September, any date will do. You wouldn't get it wrong. The date is only wrong is if you pass the year then, like you put 2025, you put 2023, right? So that means you're going in the future or something, right? If you're going, just try to get a lot of numbers for tonight, so we could all, be happier. All right, so everybody okay with that? The scope of the risk assessment, take a note of this one. So the scope is the same areas that you chose. The scope is nothing different. Watch it. The scope here is the garage and the spray boot activities. Garage and spray boot. So if we go back up, right? The risk assessment will cover the garage and spray boot activities. So the scope is where you choose. Scope is no different to that. A lot of people just go and write a big long scope, you'll get it wrong. The scope, when they say scope here, they just want to put it, that's what they put back in locations. So if you said warehouse, stockroom, office, that's what you put in there. Right? If you say lunchroom, parking area, machine shop, that's what you put in there. Nobody should fail this project, I tell you. Right? Okay, let's get to the hazards now. Anybody, any questions on that? Anybody on the top of the RA sheet? It have people that fail for that, and they don't put the RA, they don't fill out the top of the RA sheet. But again, like I said, we try to keep it down. Our pass rates are good with this thing. Guyana just give us 100% passes. Trinidad is like 97%, but there's always somebody not handing up on time or something like that, right? In which case we still work with you. We work to the very end with you, but at the end, what I said to you all is that we don't type anything for anybody. If you put 2023 there or 2025, we will just tell you change it, but we're not going to change it for you. Right? Your project is your own. We'll only give the guidance and say, put at the top of the RA sheet properly. Right? All right, let's go again. So anybody remember, we did a piece of this last week. Anybody remember what's the main thing with the hazards and then what's the main thing with them? What's the main thing with the hazards? Hi.
NEBOSH gave the hazards in the guidance.
Yeah, so that's the main thing. Give me a minute to admit somebody, yeah? I would like to drink some water too. That anyway. Okay, so right. So the main thing, yes, select habit, right? I'm gonna show you all again is that you're not free to choose your own hazards, which is good. You only have to choose some here, right? So that's the main thing, or one of the main thing, right? So just read, write, and spell this one, right? So could you use fire? Could we use fire in our risk assessment? Yes. Okay. You can check a shout out and let me know. Okay, good. Could we use manual handling? See if you see it. This is a number 6. Could we use manual handling?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I tried to trick you, but you all know the trick come in. Okay. Can we use hazardous substance chemical?
Yes. Number 7.
Can we use hazardous substance psychological? Hazardous substance psychological. What about that one?
No.
No.
Right? So
No.
the thing is, that's what I'm telling you, right? Like you didn't really need to go anywhere to do your project. You could just sit down home and do it. Because you don't have to go in Nutrimix to really see noise. You could just see it now. It have some mills and yeah, they could get noise in Nutrimix, right? The workers we see them moving feedback, with hand or with what, so it have manual handling, right? Same thing. So you don't really need to go anywhere. And the thing is, you could just choose the hazards from here, right? Before I go back to the sample, let me show you what was wrong with the one that I said was wrong. Or could you all tell me what was wrong if I didn't ask you all that before? I may have, because I know we started this kind of last week, right? This category here, right? Work equipment and machinery. If you look back at the sample here, look at what they did here, right? They have here work equipment. And this is a sample, so that's okay, but that's not okay for you, right? Like what is wrong here? The examiner will say that's not the category. The category is not work equipment. The category really is work equipment and machinery. Now, a lot of times too, Trinidadians and Guyanese would make up words, but you're just saying the same way. I just get confused too. When I say this, get confused, like you said, when you all send me a project, that's why I have a copy of this on my desk now. Right? I have a copy right here. So like when somebody send me one, I just make sure and go and check it because sometimes people slip in words now. Like you see this one, what this one? Slips and trips. Anybody know the word it has fit in there in Trinidad and in Guyana? Slip, trips, and what?
Fall.
Right, but it didn't have that here. Yeah, don't have that here. So you can't say fall, you cannot say fall. For those of us internationally, they might not understand when we say can't, right? But you cannot say falls, right? So slips and trips, right? Another one I see people have been changing is working at heights. They put work at heights, but the category is really working at heights. I'm not an examiner, I'm just telling you, right? The people that check the thing to make sure it's correct. So if you put work at height, they could tell you that's not a category. Category. I mean, it's kind of silly, right? But at the same time, I was saying two things. At the same time, I am not NEBOSH. And the other thing is that do what they ask you to do, right? So in Trinidad and in Guyana, we would use our own hazards, right? But for this project, it's simple. The hardest thing is to follow the instructions, right? So when you use them, when you put in yours, check back your list. And I'm telling you all, when you all send it to me, I just check it. As much as I have 10 years here in this school, I'll be 14 years, right? In this school, I have other years at another safety school. I just still check it, right? Some of them I know by heart, but like sometimes people put like confined spaces, right? They put confined space, but it's confined spaces, right? So they are particular because of the open book exam. What I'm trying to say then is that in NEBOSH mind, I think they think it's simple because you have so much of days to do it now. So that's why they hold it to such precise standards, right? For those who were here before the pandemic, which I mean, we were all here. Thank God we survived that anyway. But I'm talking about if anybody was doing NEBOSH, right? It wasn't that refined or defined that. Meaning you could have choose your own hazards, right? And it would not have been wrong. But the only catch is that you used to have a 2-hour exam. The project was a 2 hours. Yeah, the project, we'd carry it to a company. When I told you I did the incinerator room in the hospital, I carried students in for the exam. You actually had to do it live. You had 1 hour to do the walkthrough and 1 hour to do the write-up. Where did we write it up? The hospital in San Fernando had given us the upstairs office area training room and we wrote it up right there, right? But because of that 2 hours, you could have make up your own hazards. Things could have been right, things could have been wrong. You'd have still passed. The pass mark was 60 back then, right? Try to listen a bit. So up till 2020, the pass mark was 60. So you could have get 61 and pass. You could have get 62 and pass. You could have get 70 and pass, of course, right? But now they don't have a pass mark. They're just holding you to the standard. They're just holding you to make sure that you put what they want on the left-hand side to the right-hand side. So in that way, that's why I say NEBOSH is easy hard. It's easy to take it from the table, but in a way it kind of hard because they're marking you to be strict now. And I think they did that to keep the standard of NEBOSH because we know they're the #1 brand. A lot of people would hear, like a lot of old NEBOSH students who say, wait now, you all have 4 weeks to do this project? They had 2 hours. Anybody know anybody like that who did NEBOSH before? Somebody, you all have 4 or 5 weeks to do this thing? And they had 2 hours. They will say, you all have it good. And I say, yes, you have it good, but just take your time. Take your time, right? Open the guidance. I guess you see what I'm doing here? Print this sheet, print it out, right? Sometimes I make mistakes, so that's what I'm telling you. And that's why when I say like I would feel bad if I check somebody draft and I didn't see something like this and I didn't tell them. So that's why I print it out. If you wonder why I do that, right? I feel bad if somebody sent a project and they had work at height and it really is working at height. Or they had slip trips and fall, but it's actually slips and trips, right? So that's why I double check it because at the same time I want you to pass. At the same time, I hope you understand the preciseness, even though it's easy. It's easier than 2 hours. You can just make it up at home, but it's precise because they want to hold to their standard, right? So that's why sometimes, if you wonder, I have said that people slip through. But sometimes the people that slip through is people that don't listen to what we say on the draft reports, right? Like I mentioned, they go with the shift. Sometimes people take chances then, like they don't hand up a draft at all. They leave it to the very, very, very end. We still work with them, and if I tell you the deadline is a day, I still working with you the day after. 1 or 2 of you, right? Hopefully that's not the case, right? But we want it to pass. That's why we have good passes, right? We don't do your project, but we kind of give it the best support system it have without handwriting for you then, right? If you fail and you owed it, meant you didn't follow instructions. And like I said, our feedback to you is just saying, I think you should check over your hazard categories. You use the wrong category for health, welfare, and work environment. You put another word, you put welfare somewhere else, then you put you probably jumbled it up, right? And the examiner don't want that. They want it just as how they see it here. So our comment is check over your hazard categories. You may have made an error with confined spaces or lone working or one of those things anyway. I think I saw somebody put something in the chat. Let me see what that is. Yeah, somebody said, Madeline saying, yeah, we used to carry them all over. The worst places. One of the worst places was that incinerator room. Those students suffered. The incinerator room is horrible, but I carried them there for the final. Like, the other thing is that you never know where you was going. I don't know if you all know that. Before the pandemic, you come to the school, which is in Riverside Drive. We hire a bus, a maxi, or whatever, how much people it have, and you had to come in full PPE. Anybody know that? You had to come in full PPE. You couldn't do the exam without full PPE, right? So we drive you to the hospital and send you in the incinerator room or the furnace to get a risk assessment project done. You didn't know where you was going. It wasn't the students never knew where they were going, right? So I've used too much of companies in Trinidad. The port, the hospital, companies, IEL Industries, Atlantic, right? Metanex when they were wrong, the other one DRI when they were wrong. But it was a nice experience then. It was nice for the students. It was kind of hard because a lot of them, they had struggled to finish the report on time. Remember, they had 2 hours. And I don't know if I tell you how much hazards they had. They had to get 30 hazards. You'll have 10. So again, I say the NEBOSH project is easy hard. Yeah, no other way to describe it. It's easy, but it's hard at the same time, right? Anyway, let's take a look at this one. So we go in horizontal. So you're going to put here, I may have to grab the marker, which will kind of slow us down a bit. Let me grab the marker. So in the top here, when you look here, they want the hazard category and they want the hazard. So the question is, what's the difference? Because the hazard category coming from this sheet here. Sorry, well, I can't go back to it. I use any marker, right? But the hazard category then is hazardous substance chemical. The hazard category is fire. The hazard category is slips and trips, right? So if that's the hazard category, then what's the hazard? So the hazard is like your example of what you would have seen to be that hazard category in your company. That is why it's possible for you all to end up with the same hazard categories, but different hazards. Let's go back to the incinerator room, right? So the proper name for this is hazardous substance biological, if we go in the incinerator room, right? Hazardous substance biological is what should have been here. And then that person that was using the incinerator room, they'll have to put what it is they saw then, what it is in the incinerator room that will give rise to a biological hazardous substance. You think you understand it? So could that student do that for me?
That would be like medical waste. So things like gauze with blood stains, maybe pus, any sort of chemicals that were absorbed into it. If it burns, that'll be in the air, that smell, things like
I
that.
know. That's why if you watch my facial expression, you see because I know what is being inside there, including body parts and organs that, correct? Yeah.
Yes, and
Let's
babies.
let's not talk about that. You all see the face, right? You all see the face. I do this face a joking. Yeah, it have body parts and, okay, let's talk about something else. So let's say somebody else now. So let's say somebody was in the kitchen, not a company. Let's say you were in your company now, and you could put hazardous substance biological too, but your example is that there have been, sorry, something pop up here. So there have been kitchen waste or leftover food that have been growing mold in the refrigerator. Yeah, that's yours. That's yours, right? What about another person in the warehouse? What about the person in the warehouse? Hazardous, look at doing them for, hazardous substance biological. You put, there have been evidence of rat droppings in the warehouse, as evidenced by rodent traps. and you could probably visibly see the rat droppings. Yeah. You see what I tell you? The same hazard category could work for all of you. But you had to put your example of what it is like in your company. Tell me if you're okay with that. We move into the next category here. Well, not category, column. I refer to them as column 1. I think I told you that already. Column 2, column 3. These are referred to them, column 4. Not just me, the guidance say the same thing. If you go back to the guidance, you see column 5, column 6, etc. Right? So in column 2, or do you want to see another one? You want to see another one in column 1, or you want to, let's keep going across with it, keep going horizontal with it. Tell me what? Tell me what, which one? It's not too hard enough. Easy hard is the word I say. Easy hard. Easy but tricky. What do you want to do? See another hazard category, or you want to go across with this one?
I'll go across with it.
Okay, good. So what they want to put next is who could be harmed and how. Again, this is 2 things they ask you all. Yeah, NEBOSH is a master of 2 things in one sentence. What you say? Hazard category and hazard. Who and how. So who could be harmed? All workers, customers, and others visiting the organization. Now, just to let you know, most examiners don't like when you say all workers, they like you to specify a bit. So who could be harmed? You could probably put here, if we were back in the company, in the kitchen or whatever, we can probably put office staff, such as the administrative worker, comma, the secretary, comma, an apprentice, comma. They like it to be fleshed out, right? If you're in a machine shop, hazardous substance, if we stick into biological, who could be harmed? Welders could be harmed. I'll stick to that one, right? The HS officer could be harmed. Supervisors could be harmed, right? And the other thing is how. Let's read out this one first, right? So this is hazardous substance. Thus, how could they be harmed? They say high concentration of processed dust are always present from the routine and frequent activities being carried out. Since there is no dust extraction, people breathe in the hazardous dust, which can cause anything from short-term irritation to long-term, we can remember this a bit, right? To long-term health conditions. People can also get the irritant dust on their skin, which can cause dermatitis and their eyes, causing eye irritation and damage, or even accidentally swallow it, hand-to-mouth transfer from contaminated hands. So you see how long the how is? The how is an explanation. A lot of people just ignore the how. But you shouldn't, because they can underline it here for you. It could still be highlighted here. So if I go back to the welder, we can say how. We can say like the welder and the safety and the company may be harmed from the rat droppings, and that they may not properly wash their hands prior to having something to eat. You can say water supply is short in Trinidad. There are often days without water. You need to explain that to the UK people because some people don't understand that around the world. Right in Guyana, they don't understand what is meant to have no water in your taps, right? So you can say water supply is rotated on a weekly basis, and workers may not properly wash their hands. There is no proper lunchroom. As such, they could get infected by absorption or by ingestion of, by contaminated hands then, right? So that's how they could get harmed. Think you understand that a bit? I could do another quick one for you. I could just change the category. If I had slips and trips, I'm going to use the schools. I'm going to say, I'm just going to make up something. So slips and trips, I would say like there are cables running across an active doorway. Who could be harmed? Lecturers, visitors, students, customers, ministry representatives. And how could they be harmed? We can say that a student or an office staff may be in a hurry and may not have noticed the cord running across the doorway. Their feet may be entangled, causing them to slip and trip. Simple as that. Think you get it, folks? If not, play over the video and listen it all over again. Right? But I just did a couple there more for you to tell you the how is an explanation. I could just, if it is manual handling, you say manual handling, like this is the third one I'm doing for you all now, right? Manual handling. You say 2 workers who observe straining while moving a mechanical part by hand. Who could be harmed? You put the 2 workers, the laborers, and maybe a nearby safety, right? How can they be harmed? You can say workers are often lifted more than their weight specification. They may not have a good grip, and this may cause them to adopt a bad posture, which may cause back injuries, slip disc, etc. So that's how they can be harmed. You can even say the company does not have any mechanical aids, like a wheelbarrow or something like that. So that's why stuff is moved by hand, right? Okay, the third column is very easy. Let's try to line this up. The third column is the easiest. But prepare to write something if you want. Prepare to write something. The third column, what you're doing here, well, first of all, you're not putting much, but you gotta put something. The third column is what you're doing on, like, what are you already doing? And most people will say, well, we're not doing anything. But because it's an exam, you have to put something, right? So 1, 2, or 3 controls is sufficient here. 2 to 3 is sufficient. What are you already doing, right? So the catch here is this. What one of the catch? The catch is written in the past tense, past or present tense, right? Please take a note. This is written in the past or present tense. Because it's what are you already doing? So nothing here could be, like you can't say should be. You can't say, like dust mask should be worn. Should be is future tense, and that's meant for column 4, right? This is supposed to be R, right? P-R-E. I'm not too sure what I wrote there, right? That look like a E, right? So I'll take the R. I say P-R-E-S-E-N-T. So past or present tense. That's one of the catch. And the other catches, listen to it very carefully. When you're writing in this third column, you have to write it in a way that it is not perfect. You have to write it in a way that it is inadequate. And if we write that down, you have to write it in a way that it's not good enough there. Inadequate. I'll show you one just now. Well, it's right up there if you want to read it, but I write it, so, right? So this column, we write it in such a way that it is inadequate. Well, I don't know if you know what dilute ventilation means. Dilute ventilation is just that it means you open the windows and the doors. That's what dilute ventilation means. So in a way, it's not good enough. And if you read this one with me, they say dust mask available. What's this word here? After available is what?
But.
But. Right? So you write it, but you say but it's not mandatory that they are worn. In other words, then what you're doing, you're setting up column 4. What is column 4? Watch it. Further controls. You're setting up column 4, right? If I go back to my school example, I would say, so what am I already doing, right? I have cables across the doorway. So what I would say, staff and students are informed on induction that they are trailing cables in the office area, right? If it was manual handling, I would say, upon joining the company, workers are given an induction program in manual handling, but this was 5 months ago. Right? Let me go back to the trailing cable example, right? So like, I would say like, but there's no signage indicating that they are trailing cables. Think you understand that a bit? Which the other one I use? The other one I used was the washing hands and was the welders, right? So I would say, I can say something like, workers are encouraged to wash their hands, but there is no water frequently on the compound. You understand? You cannot give it a but then, right? Or workers are encouraged not to sit and eat in the mechanical bay, but to use the lunchroom. But this is optional, which is why you'll have seen that persons who sit on their work, they just take the food right out there and they eat right there, right? Like you're not going to the lunchroom to wash your hands and whatever. So you can say that. You can say workers are encouraged to use the welfare room for lunch, but this is not mandatory. They can sit and eat at the welding shop, And then the further controls now is where you're going to correct all of that. Tell me if you understand the third column. Again, please notice some of the language I use. Things like workers were encouraged or are encouraged to use the welfare room, but so are is past tense, or present tense. Another one I use as well. Like they are trailing cables, so that's present tense, but there are no signage. So So that's still present. Past or present tense would work, and you must write it in a way that it's inadequate. Tell me if you get it. You're kind of setting up the fourth column. That's what's happening here. Because if what you're doing was sufficient, there'd be no need for the fourth column. But then what's something, right? Just because I'm not running out of time. Some students say, well, then the sample have NA. Yeah, but it's just a sample, right? If you watch here, well-controlled risk, NA, so then we get in away. No, NEBOSH examiners not really accepting that. They say it must have something else you could do because this is an exam for you. Your project is like an exam, right? The other argument they could tell you is if this was a well-controlled risk, you should not have put it on the hazard table then. See if you understand that comment. If you had to choose 10, but electricity was well-controlled, well, then why you put it on the hazard table for? This is meant for hazards, right? Do you think you understand that comment from the examiner? They would say, well, the reason for that, let me tell you, the reason is not really that. And the reason is students are seeing this as an easy way out now. Some students would just put well-controlled risk, NA, well-controlled risk, NA. No, that's wrong because this is an exam for you, right? In the real world, that is probably true, but because this is an exam and you're marking every part of it, you should not do that. So you either put a further control and you can research electricity, man. Electricity have a whole law. You must find 3 other controls. You must find 4 other controls. You must find 5 other controls, right? And if you couldn't, change the hazard because in that sense, it's not a hazard. In that sense, it wasn't doing anybody nothing. It was well controlled. Then it's not really a hazard. It's a well-controlled hazard, right? Okay, Makeda. Okay, fine, yeah. Yeah, fine. All right, fourth column. Any questions in the third column?
So I have a question.
Sure.
So, for the control, right? Can they overlap with like the hazard? So for the incinerator room, heat will be a hazard, right? And ventilation can help with that. But well, I just using like smell as like a potential hazard as well, because certain smells can render, somebody sick feeling or they can make them faint. Ventilation will also help with that as well. So can like controls overlap or do they have to be different?
I think they could overlap, right? That piece you put in about heat and thing, no, that will come here, right? That is how they can be harmed, yeah? And your controls would just be general controls, right? So the controls, like you don't want to really, well, the controls should address the problem. So the key in suggestion column 4 is that the controls must solve the problem. That's what they look for. So I don't know if you want to start writing from that. The key to column 4 is it must solve the problem. Like you mustn't say dust and then nothing here addresses the dust, which this one actually did it well. You must address the dust, right? Like if it was a trailing cable across the doorway, then like we shouldn't say PPE training. It was a cord across the doorway. We could have just moved the cord. So the controls would have been to relocate the cord. You understand? If you read this, you'll see that. Watch it. Dust, high concentration of processed dust. So the further controls is to solve the problem. So they say enclosed area to be set up for sanding and grinding operation, including that will include a suitable local exhaust ventilation. That's an extractor fan, by the way, right? Or extractor fan. Purchase of an on-tool dust extraction system. So you see how it's addressing the dust, right? Face mask, PPE, is actually solving the dust problems. You need to keep that in mind. If your hazard is manual handling, like there's no need to talk about a set of vague things, and you could talk about, just give me a minute to admit somebody, right? You could talk about if it's manual handling, you can say the first thing that should be done is that workers should be stopped from this activity and a suitable risk assessment should be done. I talk about manual handling, right? Next thing. A mechanical aid, such as a forklift, can be used to assist in this operation. Third, workers who have to do manual handling should be trained in the proper techniques for manual handling. They should be given proper PPE, maybe like a weight belt, gloves, whatever have you. So the controls are addressing the problem. Tell me if you're okay with that, right? Like I said, some of them we have seen people put there's water on the floor and there's nothing about solving that water problem. Like where did water come from? Right? They talk about a hose at a high High language then, safe systems of work. It's water on the floor, mop up the water. Your first thing should be the area should be cordoned off. If it's water on the floor, right? The area should be cordoned off, mopped up, and the source of that water should be formed. But that'll be another control, right? But like I said, if it's noise, what would be the first control? If it's noise. So that's a hard one, and maybe that's probably a hard one for you. If it's noise, what are somebody controls for noise? If it's a generator making a lot of noise, where's the first control you could probably put in? Like a practical control.
Earplugs.
Okay, but that might be first. That's what I'm trying to get at. If you go in a party, right, and it play, well, I mean, people Trinidadians and Guyanese love hard music, right? But the point is, if it's a lot of noise, right? But this is the company, so it's not a party, right? Was one of the controls you could probably put. If it's like that, okay, let's say two.
You remove the generator, or you try to move the generator further away from the other
So
processor.
you could just turn it off for a while. And so you see, there must be a reason why it making noise, right? So some of the reasons why things make noise is that it lack maintenance. It lack lubrication. You understand? So the first answer is correct. You can say, well, immediately you can say, like within 1 day or 2 days, the generator should be turned off, right? And then it should be serviced, right? Like mechanically serviced to why this is making excessive noise. Other answers could be, yeah, you could actually move it to look at the possibility of moving it into an enclosed area or limiting people from getting in and around it, right? All right, let me tell you something here. I'm going to say something in general, right? So I'll say it again. If you read the fourth column, though, the fourth column is things to be done, right? It's things that should be done. It's further control. So training should be given. The generator should be turned off and serviced and well serviced and lubricated, right? Maybe they need to put a exhaust on it. Maybe they need to put a guard on it. Maybe they need to put a muffler on it, a baffle on it, right? So all of those are the things that you say, right, folks? Before the other two columns, easy, right? So I'll spend the next couple of minutes still on column 4. I may take 5 minutes of your time today over the 2:30 hour, right? So here's something here, right? You have to come up with 5 controls here. The fourth column must have 5 controls in it, right? A minimum of 5. Minimum means you can put more than 5. 5 minimum. If you wonder where am I getting 5 from, I just told you. Think of ways to solve the problem. From source, right? And there's a concept called the hierarchy of control, if you remember that. You could use the hierarchy. In fact, the guidance recommends it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. But I'll do one here first, and then I'll show you the guidance, right? So what the guidance say, right? Like when you put enclosed area to be set up for sanding and grinding, what should have been done? They should have matched that to the hierarchy of control. You should match it to the hierarchy of control. So an enclosed area to be set up, that may be classed under engineering control. Right? So I have realized some examiners letting it slip, but then some examiners don't let it slip. My job is to tell you what is the right thing to do, right? So you put the engineering control. I put engineer, but it's supposed to be engineering control, right? Purchase of an on-tool dust extraction system. This may be elimination, right? Because you're purchasing something. So you try to match it up to the hierarchy of control. ELI, I'll spell it for you, right? MINATION, right? Elimination. It started to look funny there, right? Use of face mask. This would be PPE, of course. So if you're unfamiliar with the hierarchy, I could shout it in the books for you now. We'll take our time because this piece is important. We almost finished, right? Column 4 and 5, easy. Well, 5 and 6, sorry. The hierarchy of control is on page 37 of chapter 3. Look at there. You can see that one there, elimination, substitution, engineering control. You see it? Page 37 of chapter 3. And you all have it on your PowerPoint slide for 4.8 have it, right? 4.8 have it, right? So I hope you're writing. So 5 controls that it must be linked back to the hierarchy of control. A minimum of 5. I just put HIE here. Actually, I get to write it, so I'll write it out. HIERARCHY. Hierarchy of controls. Okay. Watch this with me a bit. Watch this with me a bit. I'm going back to the guidance just to take up the marker. I just have one thing to say for column 5 and 6 and we finish on it. 4 is really where the work is at. So the guidance, if you could come back to the guidance here, can you all see it now? The purple and kind of white diagram in the back there. Right, so if you reach, like I tell you, they had it by column, right? And if you read column 4, you'd see, I read it here for you, and I want you to repeat something, right? What further controls or actions might be needed? Column 4, remember, you must take into account, what's this word? Take into account what? What's this?
Hierarchy of control.
Hierarchy of control, right? So like I tell you, my job is to tell you what is the right thing to do. I see some students not doing it and sometimes they pass it, but then you see, different people correct different papers now. But if you have a good examiner, and you see, that's the thing about the checklist approach now. Especially when they say, check what they say, right? They actually said the word remember. Remember, right? You must. They didn't say you could, they say you must take account of the hierarchy of control, right? So I would teach you the right thing to do. Just put in the words at the end of them, like, or you could put it in the beginning, or you could incorporate it into the sentence. Like if I said, the code could have been removed from across the driveway, or the water should be mopped up, I can say the code could be removed or eliminated. In that way, I use the word elimination. Think you understand? If I said purchase a cable protection device or a cable covering device, that'll be engineering controls, right? Folks, as we're that late, I see you all putting some stuff in the chat. If you have anything, you can probably unmute the mic and let me know. Somebody battery is dying. Sparkle, yes, we finished it now, Sparkle. So column, sorry, I had one thing to say in column 4 again, right? Another just column 5 and 6 is just one statement. It's just one sentence, right? In column 5 and 6. All right, so the last thing in column 4 is a hint for you. The last thing in column 4 is a hint for you, right? What is that hint? The hint is, if you're having trouble figuring out the further controls, if you're having trouble figuring out the further controls, there's a hint. Well, other than you thinking about them, the hint is the second textbook. The NG2 book have the controls in their minute. But just be careful when you're writing it that you don't plagiarize it. You can use the book to get the ideas as you further control. If you don't understand what I mean, I'll break it down for you. The second textbook have the hazards and the control in it. If you look, anybody knows the name of the second textbook? Where's the name of the second textbook? Beside it, NG2. Where's the name of the second textbook?
Risk assessment.
And what is we doing here?
Risk assessment.
A risk assessment, right? In fact, before the pandemic, they used to call that book Controlling Workplace Hazards. That was the name of the subject before. It's the same subject. It's the same content. They just changed the name of the book, right? But if you're having trouble, like, okay, like you think about tree and you kind of draw a blank, open the second textbook, use the index if you want, find the hazard, turn some pages, you'll see control. You say, oh yes, that one who said that controls here. Read it up a couple of times, say it back in your own words, and you're good to go, right? All right, 5 and 6. So all you're doing, I tell you, is one sentence, right? So all you're doing, you're putting a time scale in a number for each of your further control, and you put in a responsible person. And that's it. The time scale though must be a number. The only warning about the 5th column is what I told you before. Like you see things like this down here. But beside it, any, of course. You see things like I showed you one where somebody put to be determined or something this here. No, they're not accepting that. The criteria here is a specific time scale. So if I could say it again for you, on that same sentence, you need to put a time scale that is in the form of a number, and you need to put a responsible person, right? So any number would work. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 2 weeks, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, 6 months, 7 months, a number would work. But what you cannot put here is things like this, to be confirmed following the noise survey. That's not specific enough, right? Folks, you think you understand that? While we close now, we're going to wrap up now. I'll share some numbers. I'll share some things that people do here wrong. So some people put here the word ongoing, but ongoing is not a number. So that's wrong. Some people put here the word immediate. That is also wrong. Immediate is not a number, right? So once you put a number, 2 weeks, 1 week, 1 month, 6 months, 2.5 months, 2.5 months, 3 days, all of that is correct, right? Once you put a number, you'll get it correct. If you put anything else that is not a number, you'll get it wrong. And we'll stop there for today. Right? On the 6th column, while you're looking at it, it doesn't matter if you had to repeat yourself. You see how they have workshop manager here? Watch this one. Workshop manager, workshop manager, workshop manager. Repeat yourself. Don't leave it out. Right? Again, you know why, right? So I'll end with that story then. Yeah, I had a student like that, and you know how some people just put it like the 2 lines, they just put the 2 lines to symbolizes the same thing, like the 2 thing now, right? She put that on the failure for that, right? What's worse than that, her father was a policeman, so came in the office here and I want to know why your daughter failed. But police or not, solely or not, NEBOSH is NEBOSH, right? So she had to do it over. But something as simple as that. As I tell you before, the project is easy hard. What they're really checking is if you're following instructions. If you had to put back HSE officer, HSE officer, HSE officer, put it back. Right? Copy it and paste it. I mean, it's typing you doing anyway. But don't just put, some people put same. No, we'll send it back for you in the draft stages, right? But that student, she didn't hand up on time, and as I remember, right? And when we looked at it, she just put it once then. You put it once up here and she put the semicolon coming down to symbolize, and they didn't take that, right? If you had to put it more than once, like you see here, workshop manager there, workshop manager here, in the very next line, workshop manager again, in the very next line, workshop manager again. But those things should not be a reason why you fail the exam anyway, right? That's it. That's it for part 1 and part 2. The only thing is to do that 9 other times now. But that's just one way. You do it nine times again, right? To make 10 in all. All right. Folks, just to let you know, I think I know my booking. Well, I know some guys know my booking too. And I'm gonna stop the recording here. I think my booking, I got a confirmation. I have